Hey everyone, this is Paxson. I'm a sound designer and mixer for video games. Welcome to the first in a series of tutorials for Audiokinetic's Wwise. These videos are for those coming from a background in post-production audio or music production. So, someone who might have little to no experience in authoring sounds for games, but have a basic understanding of working with linear audio and a digital audio workstation. We should probably start off by understanding what exactly middleware is, and the role that it plays for sound designers. So, middleware are third-party audio tools, developed to interface with a game engine. They'll work with something like Unreal or Unity, or even a studio's in-house engine. And they provide sound designers the ability to implement and manage, modify, and mix sound assets in a game, which allows complex audio systems to be created with minimal coding required. Middleware increases the efficiency and independence of a sound designer, allowing them to be more creative with their time and depend less on programmers to implement audio. One of the great things about middleware is that it's available not only to the AAA developers, but also to small indie teams. So this makes it easier than ever for small teams, sometimes with only a single sound designer or programmer, to create cutting-edge audio experiences for games. One of the industry's most powerful middleware applications is Audiokinetic's Wwise. Developed by Canadian software company Audiokinetic, Wwise has been widely adopted for its comprehensive features and flexibility in creating complex audio systems. If you have a background in audio post or music production, you're probably already familiar with digital audio workstations. Something like Pro Tools or Reaper, Nuendo, or even Logic. So when first opening Wwise, you're probably going to say something like, "Hey, this looks nothing like the digital audio workstations I'm familiar with." To which I'd respond, "Hey, you're right. Wwise, at a first glance, is a little more abstract than a digital audio workstation. Instead of working with raw audio in a linear timeline, Wwise is more focused on the game logic. Things like how these sounds are triggered, how they play, in what order, how they can be modified in real time. Things like that. So if you have a good handle on audio signal flow, once you wrap your head around the logic behind game audio, you'll start to be able to pick up the basics of Wwise pretty quickly. So now that we have a little more background on the benefits middleware provides sound designers, we're ready to jump right into Wwise. I'll walk you step by step through the process of importing your first sounds, to generating a sound bank to implement them in your game. So we'll first start by installing the Wwise launcher, which can be found on Audiokinetic's website. This will allow you to download the Wwise application. Inside the Wwise launcher, you'll also find integration packages. This will allow you to work with Wwise in both Unreal and Unity game engines. After it's installed, we'll start by creating a new Wwise project. Now, it's important to note, a Wwise project is not just a file, but it's actually a folder containing all of the specific instructions for how audio is implemented in your game. When opening Wwise for the first time, you'll be greeted by an empty Project Launcher window. Clicking New in the lower left corner will open a new dialog box where you'll name, determine the project location, development platforms, and select additional assets you can import into your project. The UI of Wwise might look a bit daunting to those experienced with a digital audio workstation. But as soon as you understand the logic and functionality of these views, it's easy to see why Wwise is such a powerful tool for sound designers. Taking a look at your empty Wwise project, you'll see 6 separate panes. These are called views. You'll find the Project Explorer, Property Editor, Metering, the Contents Editor, Transport Controls, and the Event Viewer. A collection of views is grouped together to create a layout. Layouts each have their own unique functionality, and they can be accessed through the toolbar or cycled through with function keys F5 through F12. You'll grow more familiar with these views and different layouts in upcoming videos. So the Project Explorer is divided into 3 default hierarchies: the Master Mixer, Actor Mixer, and Interactive Music hierarchy. Within each is their own default work unit, which is essentially just an XML file that stores the settings of your Wwise project. For this tutorial, we'll be working only with the Actor Mixer hierarchy. To import an audio file, navigate to the toolbar and select Project, Import Audio Files, or even easier, key command Shift+I. The audio file importer box will appear, and allow you to add individual files or folders if you'd like to import a batch of similar sound effects. For our first import, we'll select Add Files and select the audio file we want. For this example, let's use a one-shot weapon sound effect. By default, the object type of the sound file that we selected will import as a sound SFX object. Now let's click Import. Note that a SFX object does not represent the actual audio file, but you can think of it more like a channel that the audio will be playing through. In the Project Explorer, under the default work unit in the actor mixer hierarchy, you'll see the gunshot sound we imported in blue. As soon as we click on it, we now have several controls available in the Sound Property Editor view. In here, you'll see some parameters you might be familiar with from a digital audio workstation. Things like voice volume, pitch, low and high pass filters. You can assign aux sends, as well as additional tabs where we can add effects, adjust positioning, and real-time parameter controls. You'll also notice that the transport view now lists the SFX object we created. We can audition it by pressing the play button, or by simply hitting the spacebar. Down in the Contents Editor, you can click on the waveform icon. This will bring up the Source Editor. Here, you'll find the waveform of the audio file you've imported, and several different editing tools. You can do things like adjust the trim of the audio file start and end, adjust fades, as well as define the loop region if it's a file that you'd like to loop. All right, great. So now that we know how to import sound files and manipulate sound objects, we need a way to trigger them in game. Here's the thing. Our game engine doesn't have any way of knowing what to do with these sound objects until we assign them the parameters to play, pause, mute, or a series of different actions. We do this by creating what's called an event object. An event is used to provide the instructions on when, where, and how to play sound objects, music, and dialogue in game. So in the Project Explorer view, let's click on the Events tab. The hierarchy for this may look similar to the Audio tab, but instead with two folders, labeled Events and Dynamic Dialogue, and their default work units in each. So to create a new event object for a gunshot sound, click on Events, Default Work Unit, and then click the Create New Event icon above. And that's going to prompt you to name the event. So let's go with Play Assault Rifle Fire Player. You can also easily do this from the Audio tab on your Sound SFX object by right-clicking and selecting New Event, Play. A quick note, Sound SFX objects in blue text are ones that reference the original audio file. These are ones that have not been converted yet or built into a bank, but we'll get more into that in a little bit. You'll notice that after creating this new event, our event viewer in the bottom left of the screen is now populated, but it lists it as missing. You can also check out the transport control. You should find it now has our event listed instead of the Sound SFX object from before, but when hitting play, there's no sound. Well, that's because we now need to point our event object to the Sound SFX object we imported earlier. To do that, let's head back to the Audio tab in the Project Explorer view. Now, we can simply find the SFX object we'd like to play with this event and drag it over to the Event Editor. It will automatically set the event type to play. To verify that we've successfully linked the Sound SFX object to this event, we can click play in our transport again. And there's our sound. And sure enough, the event viewer no longer has that missing tag next to this event. So the final step we'll need to follow to integrate these sounds in game is to create what's called a sound bank. Wwise has the ability to package all of the media and events contained within our project, and it automatically generates code for a specific development platform. This code defines when and where sound assets will be loaded into memory in the game. So now, let's create a sound bank. You might have already noticed in the Project Explorer a sound bank tab. However, this isn't what we're looking for. Remember earlier when I mentioned layouts that were specific to different purposes? Well, what do you know? There just so happens to be one for SoundBank. Now you'll find that the views on the right side will change to SoundBank Manager on the top and SoundBank Editor below it. Within the SoundBank Manager, there's a default work unit, which is where we'll be creating our SoundBank. Looking at the top of this view, you'll find a New button. And after clicking that, a prompt will display asking you in what work unit you'd like to place the SoundBank and a name for it. So for this example, we'll just keep it simple and go with main. Now, if we look back in our SoundBank Manager, we'll find a little plus next to the default work unit. Clicking this to expand, we'll find the SoundBank that we just created. But of course, it's not that easy. The SoundBank is still empty and needs to be populated by event objects. You'll see in the SoundBank editor that the hierarchy inclusion box is blank. To include an event object, all you have to do is locate it in the event viewer and just drag it right in. Now, finally, we're ready to generate our SoundBank. Head back to the SoundBank Manager and select our main SoundBank. Select the platform you're developing for and language. Then we can click on the Generate button at the top of this view. A dialog box appears and you can see the status of your SoundBank generation. Now, all of the code and media that we've created in this Wwise session are automatically created in the location we previously assigned, and it's ready to implement in your game engine. And there you have it. We've gone from creating our Wwise session, to importing sound and creating event objects, to finally generating a SoundBank. This was a pretty basic walkthrough of authoring sound assets, but in the next video, we'll dig deeper into the designer layout. We'll take a look at the different kinds of containers our sound SFX objects can be used in, and the different functions that they'll provide. Then, we'll dive into the features of the sound property editor, effects, and real-time parameter control. See you next time.